Hello again. It's Robert Fifth, and 1991 is calling with the top ranked albums of the year. Now I've been doing 140 of these albums, and this video is the final one in the series. This is the absolute best of the best of the best, and so yeah, get ready for it. These are the ones that hopefully, if you've been watching the full video series, and it's like, where is this album? When's he going to get to this one? This is my favorite. Well, hopefully it's a part of this video, because this is the top 13 of the 140 that I've been ranking. Now, I had to leave some out, obviously, and I did mention before how I have left out hip-hop. I'm not really into hip-hop. I left out country, not so much into country albums of 1991. Country's more of a singles format at this point. And, left out a lot of straightforward pop music. Again, more of a singles thing. Club music, again, more of a 12-inch single thing. But, so yeah, these are the top 13 140 albums ranked from 1991. Once again, in 1991, it's England for the Wind with Ned's Atomic Dustbin and Godfather. This is excellent. I love their swirling stuff. A lot of that going on in 1991 when it's coming from the UK, the swirling guitars, the whole swirling drum stuff. If you did it great, it was great. There were bands that tried to do that. It wasn't so great. Ned's Atomic Dustbin was great. Always been a big fan of the Kill Your Television, really fast stuff, really energetic stuff, people jumping around and whatever. It was like dance music that was actually a little more rock-oriented, but it still had that kind of dance flavor. Grace L. Green's my favorite song on here, but I do like the song Capital Letters just for the line, "Don't look at me in that tone of voice." Or "when you look at me in that tone of voice," whatever it is. That's pretty clever stuff. I used to know a guy that was into them as well, but he swore up and down that their name was Ned's Atomic Dustbin. It's like, no, it's Ned's Atomic Dustbin. It's like, I'm pretty sure it's just dustbin. Like, that's what the English refer to as like a trash can. It's dustbin, right? It's Ned's Atomic Dustbin. That's the way you're supposed to say it. This is, I'm for the people in England only. This is only for the English. It is Ned's Atomic Dustbin, correct? Answer in the comments. Not deuce. Have you ever heard anybody call these guys Ned's Atomic Dustbin? Because I just got the one guy. Great album, though. So what do you get when you mix Pearl Jam with Soundgarden? Before either of them were blown up huge, you get Temple of the Dog, the 1991 tribute album that features, of course, members of Pearl Jam, members of Soundgarden. This is not a tribute album where they're doing covers and things. This is a real tribute album where they're writing songs and performing songs specifically for a specific tribute to a person. That person was the late Andrew Wood from the Seattle band Mother Love Bone. And you can just hear, Chris Cornell's vocals are always soaring and emotional anyway, but on this album it really brings it out, and especially when you know that many of these songs are about a specific person. You know who that person is, you know some of the story of that person. It just brings this whole thing to just an emotional ocean of, it's just incredible. Chris Cornell's vocals are just absolutely suited to do something like this. And the songs are, a lot of them are long, they're very textured. You've got pretty much Soundgarden, I think, it sounds more like a Soundgarden project with Pearl Jam people involved than it sounds like a Pearl Jam project, because it is definitely the Soundgarden sound beyond just Chris Cornell's vocals. But this is a terrific album. And again, the more you know about why it's made and who they're talking about, the better it is. Say Hello to Heaven is a great way to kick this off. You've got tracks in here that have a sort of a country tinge to them almost. You have tracks in here that take you on a journey from a piano ballad right into harmonica blues. That's the way that Times of Trouble is. You've got a song on here called Your Savior that is just, great blues rock. It's real blues, though. They got the blues, obviously. And of course, you have, I believe it's the third track on here, you have Hunger Strike. And that was the big single all over the radio, all over MTV. And from what I remember, This was popular and all over the radio right around the same time Pearl Jam Alive was. So you're being introduced to Eddie Vedder two different ways here. With this Alive song, which is Pearl Jam, and then also this Hunger Strike song. And so I actually preferred Hunger Strike over Alive. And didn't know, I knew that the voice, I think it's that guy from that new Pearl Jam band or something. I'm not sure, it was that kind of thing. But I definitely preferred Hunger Strike. But man, Eddie Vedder and Chris Cornell together, you got Chris Cornell with those soaring vocals. You got Eddie Vedder with that kind of growling, the thing that everybody would try to imitate later on and not do a good job of. Unfortunately, Eddie Vedder kind of invented that yarling shit that came up in the late 90s. My God, that was awful. But Eddie Vedder at least sounds like he's sincere with it. Not just go and that bullshit that came with all these other groups trying to imitate it. But yeah, Hunger Strike, man. I wish that Chris Cornell would have teamed up with Eddie Vedder on vocals for a few more tracks on here, but it only happens on the one. But man, that would have just brought this album up even higher if there would have been a couple more tracks where those two they complement each other so well. I don't know why it was only done for one song, but that's how it was. And I don't think they ever did it again either, even after they both blew up and became popular. That's probably a record label thing, wouldn't allow that to happen. But this does not sound, a lot of things when they're put out and it's a tribute to someone or, it's a concept type thing, kind of can sound rushed, kind of half-baked. This does not sound like a rushed effort at all. This is highly emotional, very well done. Songs are extremely well written, perfectly performed, and it is a great album. The only thing that would be better than this in 1991 would be the Soundgarden. So haven't gotten to that one yet. But yeah, this is for this type of music. It's the thing that if you're just doing something and one of these tracks come on, it's like it just pulls you out of whatever you're doing. It's like, whoa. So yeah, Temple of the Dog. Highly recommend this if you haven't heard it, especially if you're a big fan of Soundgarden or Pearl Jam and you, for whatever reason, have just kind of skipped out on this. You definitely need to check this out. All right, we're continuing ranking 140 albums from the year 1991, and I can finally show another record. And this is the only reissue that I'm showing in this entire video series. It is Kyuss and their debut album called Wretch. And man, this is a smoking album. That is why, in more ways than one. That is why it is so high up here. Absolutely love Kyuss. I love this album from the very first time I heard it in 1992. And thought, man, I got to get this, and did. And then that's one of the reasons I wanted to get the reissue of the album as well. So this is the only one. Oh, no, I take that back. So I wanted to get the reissue of the album as well. This thing starts off just, you know what you're in for when you hear that opening track, the beginning of what's about to happen, and it is. Truth in the title. It's a quick instrumental intro, but really lays it out there about you're going to get some bass-floored sludge rock that with the riffs and the grooves, stoner rock, I guess is what it would be called later, goes right into Highway 74, which it's just the riffs and the bass and all of that. The whole feel of this album is just incredible. Absolutely love this. Of course, Kyuss went on to get some different members, break off some members, and become Queens of the Stone Age. But this is when they were Kyuss with Josh and the gang. Yeah, you got Love Has Passed Me By. That basically just continues the sound as well. Now, there are some tracks on here, such as Black Widow and Deadly Kiss, that were taken from their debut EP. So they have sort of a different sound. They're going for the same type of sound, but they're not recorded as well. So you don't get those clear banging drums. It's kind of all more of a murky kind of thing. But it fits well with the album, but I usually just would skip over those couple of ones. But there's this track on here called The Law, seven and something minutes long. Brings everything right back. Isolation after that just flies right by. Great album from Kyuss. Now, there are some things on here like the song Son of a Bitch. Goddamn, son of a bitch. It's goddamn, son of a bitch. Very catchy. You'll be saying that over and over again in your head after you hear it, but it is the 90s, so they got to have that kind of thing going on in here. There's another one called Big Bikes. That's pretty juvenile as well with its lyrics. it is the 90s, you know, that kind of fits in with that. You can skip over Big Bikes if you want. And also, goddamn, son of a bitch. You can skip over that too. But yeah, they can be forgiven for that. But then this last track, Phase 3, or Stage 3, wraps it up the same way you came in, with an instrumental track that's just stellar. So this is really, like I said, bass-floored, sludge rock, great guitar riffs, not the kind of thing you necessarily need to hear on earbuds or some briefcase player, record player. You know, the bass on this is just going to probably, you know, if you got the kind of briefcase record player where the speakers are under the turntable, you know, right there in the box, it's just going to probably bump the stylus right off the record. This is, you know, this is the kind of thing where it's that bassy kind of sludge rock that'll just make the bong water start rippling, you know. That's what you want. That's what you got from Kyuss and the album Wretch. Just great stuff. Little bit 90s, you know, with the, you know, kind of, oh, you know, juvenile stuff and, hey, we're going to talk dirty or whatever. But other than that, a great, great album. And yeah, if you want to get the CD of this, probably pretty cheap stuff. I mean, probably not a $2 one, maybe like more like a $6 one. But the CD sounds great. So just get the CD if you don't want to shell out the $30 or whatever for the reissue. You know, I've been talking about a lot of the changing sounds and how 1991 was a great year to pick to do this, because you had all these different things going on. You had the hard glam rock stuff kind of going out. You had the extreme metal coming in. You had the grunge, of course, coming in. So a lot of interesting things. Alternative rock was blowing up huge and kind of going more mainstream. But there were artists who, you know, were riding that tide, and they were able to successfully pull it off. And Tom Petty was definitely one of those. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers and Into the Great Wide Open was the 1991 album. And this one kind of gets forgotten about, unfortunately, I think, a little bit. It does come between Full Moon Fever, which everybody loves that. That's a classic. And then, of course, Wildflowers, which is, you know, when they moved to Warner Brothers, had another solo album, and that's got all those great 90s tracks on there. And then, of course, in between those two, you had the greatest hits come out with the new track, Mary Jane's Last Dance. So all of those get talked about all the time. They still get played on the radio all the time. But this is in between that, and so it kind of gets overlooked, which is too bad, because, you know, I'm putting it way up here for a reason. It's a great album from Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers and should not be overlooked. And I found out after all these years, you know, Tom Petty, of course, unfortunately passing away, very untimely, very sad. I saw him in concert probably a couple months before he died, and then to learn later on that he was in complete physical pain putting on that concert, you would never know it. That was really sad, but you know, after all that's said and done, and his, you know, his musical output is out there, he's not going to have any new Tom Petty or whatever. I think my favorite Tom Petty song of all time, Learning to Fly. The lyrics, the production, the way it sounds, the way it all fits together. It's my top Tom Petty song, and it kicks off this album. Learning to Fly, incredible. Then this album is where he teamed back up once again with Jeff Lynne, so that's part of that production and those harmonies in the background. But yeah, Learning to Fly, incredible. Favorite Tom Petty song, definitely. It's got other great tracks on here. Of course, Into the Great Wide Open was a huge staple on MTV with the video with, was it Faye Dunaway, I think, was in that? Johnny Depp, of course, was in it. And he was able to stay on MTV with interesting videos like that. Great music, too, of course. But like I said, able to ride that right into the 90s and still be a prominent rock figure that didn't sound like he was throwback or, you know, resting on past glories and things like that. He was still fresh. He was still exciting. Everybody still loves Tom Petty. So that was great. King's Highway, another great track on here, very upbeat. He's going to turn it around. He's going to take control of his life and head out on the King's Highway. Wow, we all wish we could do that. We're going to live vicariously through Tom Petty. Some of the tracks on what would be side 2, I guess the second part on here, you know, they got kind of elementary videos, kind of like not trying as hard. So, you know, like All the Wrong Reasons and, you know, things like that. You know, you could probably, you know, they're still great, but they're not up to the standards of some of the other ones on here. Built to Last is a great way to wrap this album up. You know, just a love song about how, baby, we're built to last. And if you've been in one of those long-term relationships at this point that was built to last, and you can kind of check that song out, and it kind of speaks right to you. That's the great thing about Tom Petty at this point. He's really speaking as somebody. He sounds like he's speaking the truth. Like he's really singing lyrics that are genuine from the heart, talking about his reality, not trying to just play to an audience and do the usual tropes. And that's one of the things that always made his music so interesting. So do not skip out on this one, especially if you're a huge Tom Petty fan and you might have a lot of them, but you don't have this one. You definitely want to get into the Great Wide Open in your collection. And the CD sounds great. I never got this on vinyl, but sounds great to me on CD. And I've had this since 1991, so I'll definitely be keeping this one. But yeah, Learning to Fly is just, it's my favorite Tom Petty song. Do the albums just keep getting better and better, or maybe it's just me? But yeah, we are up to the one from Swervedriver. They are from Oxford, and their album from 1991 is called Raise. Really nice music from these guys. Some consider this shoegaze, I guess, would be the current word for it. I don't really know if it's dream pop or shoegaze because it is a little more lively than what you usually get in that subgenre. And I mean, like the first song, Sci-Flyer, just comes blasting right on. So yeah, it's definitely upbeat, definitely energetic, and Son of Mustang Ford was the single, and didn't get a lot of attention or whatever, but it was a single. Has this nice, really nice repeating guitar riff, so a lot of great guitar work in this album. And like I said, a really full sound. You get to hear like a full spectrum of sound in this, and yeah, just really, really well produced. Especially for something that would be considered alternative rock. A lot of the times with stuff that's considered dream pop or whatever, a lot of the instruments are kind of blended together. You get this sort of wall of sound thing going on. But with this one, all the instruments are discernible. You can really delve in and, go a lot of different places sonically as you kind of make your way through all the sounds there. But a really great album from Swervedriver. I like some of their other stuff too. But this one, great. The vocals are a little bit groggy in places. Maybe that's why it's dreamy, because the vocals are kind of groggy. Yeah, it seems so real. Like that song, that would be more of like in the dream kind of realm. Like, that repeating riff with the keyboards. But yeah, Swervedriver's great. I've liked these guys since the first time I heard this album, probably 92, early 93. Got onto Mezcal Head, their next one with Last Train to Satansville. And I think these guys kind of fell off a couple albums later. I'm not sure if they're still around or not. Like I said, they're from Oxford. So it's an English group. Maybe they continued in England, but as far as their U.S. exposure, it kind of died off around 95, 96. But I've always really liked this album. We'll kind of go back to it every once in a while, and definitely had to include it high up on the list because I just think it's just great. Swervedriver, one of those bands that have remained consistent while they were out, but they kept changing drummers, like Spinal Tap. But I think they did go away for a while. Maybe they came back a little bit later on for a couple albums, but certainly their high point was 91 through 93, 94. So if you want some kind of swirling instruments that were popular, I keep coming back to that term, swirling sounds, swirling instruments. It was really the thing in 91. With the alternative rock stuff. But if you like that, but you like it kind of lively and energetic, and like I said, the sound filling the room, you definitely need to check out the album Raise from Swervedriver. It is a countdown, so the albums are just getting better and better, and I can finally talk about the Meat Puppets and their 1991 album called Forbidden Places. What an absolute jewel of an album. Fantastic nearly all the way through. These guys do the country rock thing, but they're definitely more on the rock end of the spectrum on that, and I just love that sound. Their harmonies are fantastic. They do like the country-tinged harmonies, but they don't sound like they're trying too hard to be country. They don't throw on kind of an affected twang sound. Kind of like Uncle Tupelo. I was talking about the Uncle Tupelo, the early stuff kind of annoyed me a little bit because they'd be doing that country twang kind of thing, and they really don't, they're from Belleville, a lot of them, so they don't really talk like that. But these guys just sound very sincere, very natural, and they can be fun. They can rock out without sounding like a parody or whatever, like they do on songs like Open Wide and Another Moon. Just great stuff all the way through. They do the more country flavored That's How It Goes. And like that song's about pretty serious subject matter, but they handle it with heart. It sounds real. It's the opposite of like that Hold Her Down song from Toad Wet Sprocket that I started talking about that album to start this whole series because it's the worst album on here. That's the way it should be done, like this. This sounds sincere. It doesn't sound ridiculous like that song. But yeah, just great stuff all the way through. Harder rock stuff, more country flavored stuff, but it all sounds pretty authentic. But I do like the way that they do push the rock boundary, on the rock scale a little bit on this album. It starts off with a song called Sam that I believe was a single. We played that in college. We had the CD promotional single for that, played that. Now that's a song that it's great that did not become a big hit, because I think with the quirkiness of it, the really fast singing, it is kind of gimmicky, and it would have gotten kind of old really quick. So it's good that that's the kind of song you want to revisit every couple of years or something like that. It's great that did not become a big hit. That would have gotten really annoying and obnoxious. So if you're going to check out this album, you're like, okay, well, it sounds interesting, I'll check it out. And you hear that first song, Sam, and you're like, yeah, no. This reminds me of like the Bare Naked Ladies or something. Do yourself a favor, Continue On is the only song on the album like that. So don't be scared off by the first track. But yeah, definitely check out, if you're into the country rock thing and wanted a little more rock, Forbidden Places from the Meat Puppets. Definitely. Motorhead 1916 is one of my favorite Motorhead albums, especially from the later days. And it's just a lot of fun. It's a little bit of a different sound for them. They're going more in like less of a speedy thing like they had in some of their early albums like Ace of Spades, and going into more of like just a basic rock thing, but you still have Lemmy Kilmister. As long as you have Lemmy and that voice, it's going to be great, and it's going to be Motorhead, and that's what this is. But a lot of nice touches on here. They do have the boogie rock stuff like Going to Brazil and Angel City. Angel City even has some boogie piano going on in a Motorhead song. If you've not heard that, just try to imagine that and then check it out. But I don't know if we necessarily needed the power ballad, Love Me Tomorrow. Not to be confused with the Chicago song, Love Me Tomorrow. It's not that one. It's not that bad, thankfully. But it is kind of, I'm not into that one. But there is a nice ballad to close it off. The title track, 1916, is Lemmy from the point of view of a soldier at that time, and just all of the horrible experiences that he had to go through as a soldier. Of course, I mean, this is not real life. He was not a soldier in 1916, but unless he's one of these, maybe he was. I mean, Lemmy can do anything, so maybe he was. I don't know. But it's really a harrowing song and a great way to close the album out. And it's just brutal, but a ballad, and it's a different approach for these guys, but it completely works. It completely works on this album. A lot of this stuff, or even when they come in with some boogie woogie horns on one of the songs, I think that's Angel City too, or maybe it's the other one, Brazil, but they got the horns coming in, and it's just like rockabilly horns. It's just kind of, okay, well, all right, it kind of works. But yeah, they even got a Ramones tribute on here, paying tribute to the Ramones. Song's just called Ramones. They're doing like they got the Ramones chords, man. They got the sound, but it's still Motorhead because it's still Lemmy. Like I said, the whole thing works. It's just a lot of fun. You can tell these guys are having fun. Some of it back to the basics, back to their, these bands, once they put out a few albums, a lot of them like to get back to their roots. I think that's probably what's going on this one. But it is not the speed metal and the really fast, hard stuff, like I said, that you got with the debut or with Ace of Spades and stuff like that. But it also is not things like I Ain't No Nice Guy Anymore and whatever. What's the one on here that Beavis and Butthead used to play? No Voice in the Sky. That's on here. With the eye for eye, tooth for tooth. That's the Beavis and Butthead ranked that, and they have officially approved. So it's also got Beavis and Butthead's seal of approval. Monster Magnet. Spine of God. Did you think this would be up this high? Well, it is, because it is just that incredible. I absolutely love this album. Monster Magnet's first full-length album. Super Judges after that, and then they've got the Dopes to Infinity, and then Power Trip. Those are great. A little more polished, a little more in the classic rock kind of moving over to like a metal thing. But this is full on the early version of like the stoner rock stuff. And what a trip this is. This album is masterful all the way through. Towards the end, they've got a cover of Grand Funk's Sin's a Good Man's Brother, which I don't usually do cover songs. I'm not into cover songs, most of them. I mean, about 5% I actually enjoy. This is definitely one of the 5%. They take that to the next level, boost that thing up, and just hard rock through the whole thing. but done so well. Stoner rock stuff. You've got the spacey kind of stuff coming in, but it's all got this edge to it. And it's great stuff. This is the original cover. It was changed when they moved over to Caroline Records and they started distributing it. And then I think later on in the 2000s or whatever, it was reissued and put back on this cover. I always liked this one, though, with the kind of the blast out stuff on the sides. But yeah, Monster Magnet, always going to have a special place in my heart because it was the only concert that I ever tried to manage. I was at a radio station at the time, rock station in Springfield. I talked about it before. But we decided that we were going to start doing our own concerts. Not just taking a concert and promoting it and putting our name on it and whatever as it goes through town, but we're actually going to do a full-on concert. We're going to take care of the writers, and we're going to do everything involved in bringing a concert to town. And the concert was in April of 2001. It was at the Sangamon Auditorium, Springfield, Illinois. Monster Magnet, Buckcherry, and this band that didn't really go anywhere called Professional Murder Music. And man, I first time ever doing that. I had just become the program director of the station, so I was just getting my feet wet, and it was like, this is thrown on me, and I had no idea what I was doing. It turned out to be a complete shit show, something I never wanted to do again. We never did it again as a radio station until years and years later when we got actually professional people involved that knew what the hell they were doing. Instead of just, we're going to DIY all this stuff. It's like, it turned into a mess. We didn't even find out until later on, because I don't know what I'm doing, and the two people that were working with me had no idea what we were doing. And so we had no idea, hey, you better check and make sure the venue serves alcohol. No, they didn't. So we're doing a Monster Magnet Buckcherry show with no alcohol. Again, Sangamon Auditorium at the college. And, it just all kinds of promotional problems. Our own radio station's morning show couldn't promote it because they were simulcast in Peoria, and Peoria had their own Monster Magnet concert, so the morning show couldn't promote it. It's like, what? It's just like one bad thing after another. Our general manager, whose idea all this was to do all this, had no idea what a writer was. And when he found out, hey, both of these main big bands have these big long lists of things they need for the concert, including Fruit Loops. I remember maybe it was Buckcherry. One of the two wanted Fruit Loops. That still stands out in my mind. But we're not paying for all that. Yeah, you are. That's one of the main things involved in bringing a band to town. It's been going on for decades. Yeah, you're paying for all that. And it was just back and forth, and just a bunch of people, just a total smoke show. Nobody knew what the fuck they were doing. And then the lead singer of Buckcherry farts in my face. That was the cherry on the top. Monster Magnet, though, cool guys, seemingly understanding of the issues. There was a point where I was just like, I was walking over to one of the guys, and I'm just like, dude, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Fuck it. He's like, all right, man, all right, we got it. They put on a decent show. I wish I would have seen him with the Spine of God tour. That would have been mind-blowing. But this was the Power Trip era, or actually after that, I think. But yeah, so Monster Magnet, Spine of God, incredible album all the way through. Stoner rock, hard rock, fun stuff, well recorded, especially when you consider it's an independent debut. If you have not heard it and you're into that stuff, you definitely need to check out Monster Magnet, Spine of God. It's not way up high on a list of over 100 albums for no reason. Score another one for the UK in 1991 with Screamadelica from Primal Scream. Love this one since it first came out as well. Read up about it and didn't really hear it a lot and just purchased it on channel. I think I went to this place actually called Now Hear This. There used to be a store called Now Hear This that had listening stations set up. Now, I don't know how popular this is in other parts of the world or other parts of this country, but in this area, this was the only store that had that, where most of their CDs were in the store. They were not wrapped. They would have one copy that was out on the shelf, and then the ones that you could buy, you would just bring it up to them, and they would get you one behind the counter that was still sealed, and that's the one you would buy. But they had one copy of everything out on the shelf that was open, and you just take the CD and listen to it on these little listening stations with headphones, and that's how I discovered a lot of these UK acts in 1991, thanks to this store, Now Hear This, which is definitely no longer around. But yeah, Primal Scream, a band that I just took a chance with that crazy cover artwork that's apparently inspired by an LSD trip. Saw that, and I'm gonna check this out, and I just love the swirling sounds, and I usually don't like drum samples and things like that, but if you're gonna do it, you might as well make it sound like they make it sound in this album, which is actually pretty cool. So a little different approach to that. And it's got all kinds of stuff. It's got club sounds, it's got a little bit of rock in there, it's got like the dance stuff, it's even got gospel tinges, like in the song Move On Up. A couple of tracks on here actually produced by Jimmy Miller, who did a lot of the 70s stuff, like Rolling Stones was the big one, and always loved his production, definitely. And I found out, I think I read about it later, I found out that he produced a couple of tracks or whatever. I wasn't really paying attention to the liner notes at the time, and I'm like, I can pretty much bet which the two are, and I was correct. Yeah, loved it. And I read later on, actually just recently, that he was inspired by pet sounds on some of the songs. I don't know where that's coming from. But yeah, Primal Scream, as soon as you turn this thing on, it's just a blast of fun, and for me, nostalgia, and love it. Love it. Again, score another one for the UK, and released on that magic date. I keep mentioning that, September 24th, 1991. Again, I've said it, I will speak more on that coming up. All right, we are at a point in the ranking of 140 albums from 1991 where we can talk about Matthew Sweet and the album Girlfriend. Yeah, it's a good one. That's why it's up here this high, at least according to me. Loved this the first time I heard this. This was an album I actually got acquainted with when it was first out. Heard the song Girlfriend. A friend had this CD, and I just love the way that it sounded with the production mostly, where it was like this sound where it has, different things on different channels going on. You've got a couple of songs where the drums are on one channel, just like Grand Funk Railroad used to do. You've got songs on here where vocals come swooshing in. It's kind of like a little tiny bit of psychedelic tinges with that. But the stereo separation in here was not what you would usually get in the early 90s. So the sound of this really stood out. But Matthew Sweet, he's got different things going on in this. He's got that kind of nervous, kind of nerdy, kind of sounding voice. This guy from Nebraska. So he's coming out of the Midwest with this. Tuesday Weld featured on the cover. Not sure why, but yeah, that's Tuesday Weld. And so, yeah, that's Matthew Sweet on the back cover. But yeah, a lot of great songs in here. Girlfriend was the big song with the great guitar work from Robert Quine. Now, he was a guitarist that was just with Matthew Sweet mostly, but his guitar work is stellar on this. I love the way it sounds. I love the drumming in this as well. And not only do you have the guitar work of Robert Quine, you also have Richard Lloyd on here from Television, and they kind of switch off and on various tracks doing the lead guitar thing. But man, they're very similar. It's kind of hard to tell who's doing what here, but you got, some pros here on the guitar on here. Like I said, great drum work too. I love the sound of the drums on this, the way they're recorded, and that kind of just really natural sound. The lyrics of some of the songs, not as stellar as some of the music. I really could do without his ode to Winona Ryder. I guess it's Winona Ryder. The song's called Winona. And, he's like, you can be my little movie star, and I'm all alone in the world. It sounds like a creepy fan doing a creepy letter to Winona Ryder, and I don't know. It's not my favorite song on here. It does have some great ones. There's another girl on here he sings to called Evangeline. That is a much better song. The Evangeline is in love with God, so he doesn't know if he could get in there. I mean, you're competing with God for Evangeline's attention on here, so that might not happen. I've Been Waiting is great. That's the second track on here, really upbeat. There's upbeat power pop. That's basically the realm this is in, kind of a power pop type of thing with a little bit of innovation, or I guess throwback, not really innovation, but throwback to some really nice stereo sound. And you even got some country tinges on here with steel guitar. Songs in here like, You Don't Love Me, and Day for Night's great on here as well. You got kind of a weird stuff going on as the CD continues on. This is like an hour-long disc. So you got Does She Talk, which is kind of, I don't know, he tries to get a little saucy on that one. But Divine Intervention, great. That's where a lot of the psychedelic kind of swooshing kind of comes in early on the album. It's the very first track. Interesting that this has 15 tracks on it, but after track, I think it's after track 6, it sounds like somebody is turning a record over. It's one of those CDs from the 90s where they put like a vinyl effect on it, so it sounds like you're starting side 2, like before song 6 or 7 or whatever. Now the interesting thing with that is this was later re-released on vinyl, but it became a 2-disc set because it's an hour long, right? So the flipping over of the vinyl would come in the middle of like side 2 on that, or the middle of side 3. So I'm not sure if they kept that in or not, but I always wondered what they did with albums like this that were only released on CD, where they had the vinyl noise. Either they had the record flipping and you hear the needle going on the thing and a little bit of popping or whatever, or sometimes like on the Beck CD, Odelay, they would have the end of the record just repeating the inner groove. Did they do that when the vinyl came out and you actually had an inner groove? Not really sure about that, but really sure that Matthew Sweet is high up on my list for a reason. If you like power pop and you like a little bit of a throwback sound with the stereo effects and whatever, check this out. Great guitar work on here, like I said, as well. So a lot of the albums that are up here towards the top of the list have probably been sort of predictable. They're kind of the big albums of the time. But this one, not so much, I don't think. The legendary Pink Dots and the Maria Dimension. It's awesome, though. You got to check this out if you've never heard it, especially if you are a fan of like psychedelic music. This is like 60s psychedelia in 1991, and it is brilliant, and it's very long, too. It's a long trip you're on. Long, strange trip. 74 minutes. They're trying to fill up the whole CD, pretty much. And this was also released on vinyl at the time, but the vinyl it only goes up to track 8, so there's 6 fewer songs on the record version of this. So yeah, another win for CDs in 1991. But yeah, the legendary Pink Dots. I remember when I heard this probably around 93, 94, and I thought it was kind of cool, and then listened to it a few years after that. Thought, man, this is really cool. Heard it a few more times over the years, just heard it again a couple of times, and was just like, this is really cool. This is like gotta be one of the favorite CDs I'm hearing on this project. So I had to rank it this high, and yeah, it is just a magical album. The way that they can do sort of the psychedelic elements of something without making it sound cliched or throwback or whatever, at the same time making it sound modern, modern for 1991. But yeah, it is an instant classic. And if you've never heard it, like I said, you're into the kind of the way out space rock, or not so much stoner rock, because it doesn't have like the fuzz guitar and stuff. It has more of the spacey kind of, sort of like one of my favorite albums of all time, the Kaleidoscope album, Tangerine Dream from the band Kaleidoscope that I've talked about before. I did a whole video on it. Like, it was my like grail album that I finally got recently. Love that. A 5-star album, definitely. This kind of reminds me of that, especially the vocals a little bit. That's probably why I love this album so much. The legendary Pink Dots and the Maria Dimension, from the opening track, one of the best tracks on there. If you're not into it by like song 1, then you might as well stop it, because the whole thing is pretty much in that vein. But if you turn it on and you're like, man, this is I like this, you're gonna like the whole thing. So check it out. Like I said, if you're into psychedelic stuff, check it out. The legendary Pink Dots and the Maria Dimension. We're up to the best of the best. This is cream of the crop. Soundgarden, Bad Motorfinger. You knew this was coming. One of those albums released on that special magical date in September, day before my birthday. These guys, it's all grunge, it's all Seattle, it's all the same, right? No, it's not. I mean, these guys definitely, those Seattle groups, they all had their different kind of approach, and Soundgarden was much more of a serious sort of metal band. They were true musicians, and Chris Cornell was a true vocalist. I mean, wow, the vocals on this are just peerless. But yeah, Bad Motorfinger. I was never crazy about that cover. That's kind of like the drawing there with. I don't know what that. Definitely metal. That does not look like a grunge cover if you don't. If you weren't aware. But yeah, this is an incredible album, a very long album with all kinds of musical, time signature changes and complex arrangements and whatever. But it still sounds just like bashing hard rock. They pull off like that. It's one of those bands where once you start really getting into it, and you really start listening to what's going on. It's like, wait a minute, this isn't as simple anywhere near as like kind of just basic hard rockin' whatever as you might first expect. So yeah. Outshined and Rusty Cage, two big hits off of here, and great way to start the album. Just full on, full sounding. You turn this up and it just fills the room with just aggressive, but not overly aggressive. It's not like they're trying too hard. It's just right in that zone. It's really perfect. New Damage, great way to wrap things up. The wreck is going down. Get out before you drown. Like I said, very long, and the songs are longer on here, but they don't seem like they overstay their welcome. Slaves and Bulldozers is the first really long one that's like, 6.5, 7 minutes. Seems like a 4-minute song. Just great stuff on here. I've always loved this CD. And then, if nothing else, for the great song titles. A Room 1,000 Years Wild, Face Pollution, Searching with My Good Eye Closed. You don't get song titles like that from anybody but Soundgarden. And you probably know this CD. You probably like this CD. I love it, and never got this on vinyl. Just happy with the CD. It's what I've had all these years. And my CD is the one with the triangle still in it. The triangle is still in the middle. It's a flat face CD. So, I don't know if, do you call CDs pressings? This would be a first pressing. I don't know if what is that when you have a first issue of a CD? Is it an issue? Is it a pressing? Does it matter? It doesn't matter. Unless you get, you're comparing it to something that was remastered later or whatever. But man, what a great album. That's why it's up here. Soundgarden, Bad Motorfinger. I don't really know what else to say except for Johnny Cash covered Rusty Cage and did a great job with it, but the original Jesus Christ Pose is on here too. Just what a voice. All these Seattle guys, the grunge guys, dying so young, and Chris Cornell was the one I didn't see coming at all. I thought he would be one of those guys that went on and rocked on and for years and years and years, and maybe not with Soundgarden, he was, had other things going on, Audioslave and solo work and stuff, but man, that voice, I thought he would be one of those guys that would be up there in his, late 50s and just powerhousing through or whatever, but unfortunately, that's not the way it turned out. 140 albums I have ranked now, including some that I didn't rank, so it's more like about 150 albums from the year 1991 that I've been checking out over the last couple of months, listening to some of them multiple times in different settings, and it all comes down to number 1. If you've watched the entire series, you've probably figured out what number 1 is. It's the big one that has been missing from the list so far. No, it is not Paula Abdul, Spellbound. No, it is not Michael Bolton, The Classics. It's another big one that's been missing from the list. One of those albums released on September 24th of 1991, just like Soundgarden's Bad Motorfinger, Primal Scream's Screamadelica, Prong's Prove You Wrong. I think the Red Hot Chili Peppers' Blood Sugar Sex Magic was released on that date. This is a big date in rock history as far as albums coming out. And this album came out on that date. This is an album by a group called Nirvana, and the album is called Nevermind. And this is my absolute favorite album of 1991. It wasn't even close. When I started this, I had no doubt this was going to be at number 1. I was kind of thinking, I bet Soundgarden's Bad Motorfinger will be at number 2. Maybe there'll be something else there. I had no idea that the legendary Pink Dots was going to be at 3. I didn't know. I knew Monster Magnet, Spine of God was going to be up there. I knew Temple of the Dog was going to be up there. I knew Matthew Sweet was going to be up. I knew all that, right? I knew, all some of that Manchester sound stuff was going to get up at the top. I had absolutely no doubt this would be number 1. This album, I loved it. The very first time I heard it, I loved Smells Like Teen Spirit the first time I heard it. It sounded so incredibly fresh, even though it was basic guitar rock. There's nothing really overly inventive or like mind-blowingly out of left field on this. This is hard rock. But at that time, you know, we were so like, I was so done with the same old shit that was coming out since like 1986 or 87 or so. It seemed like rock was really in a rut. And that's why some of those albums, like the LA Guns one and the Great White one, I mean, those are perfect examples of albums that were just like, you know, yeah, we've heard all this before, you know, and here it is again, just a little more watered down than it was last time. I didn't even bother, White Lion was another one, but I didn't even bother with Mr. Big. If you notice, that wasn't even on the thing. You know, the newer bands trying to come out like that Kick Tracy that I put at number 139. It was that kind of thing. And then these guys come out with this and just changed everything. Just was no bullshit, none of this posturing, none of this rock star posing. It was sort of like punk, but not really. It was sort of like classic, you know, going back to the classic, you know, kind of like just out there in the dirt, you know, just rocking out, but not really. It was kind of hard rock, kind of metalish, but not really. And they had to come up with a new term for it, and that was grunge, of course. Now, not only do I have the CD, I have the original pressing of this that I've kept in a frame. You know, in 1991, I just was listening to the CD, so I just have it. I got this just to be cool when it was first out. You know, I think I paid $10 for this, brand new. And just thought, you know, I started collecting Nirvana stuff was what it was. So they were the band that I decided to start collecting because I liked them so much, you know, because I'd had a lot of Kiss stuff, a lot of Beatles stuff. So Nirvana was my 90s band that I started, you know, I just started getting all kinds of Nirvana stuff. Good thing I did too. A lot of that stuff's pretty pricey right now, but picture discs and, you know, rare CDs, CD singles with bonus tracks. I have the Unplugged in New York on a record, first pressing of that, bought that brand new, bought this brand new, $10, and just have kept it in a frame for a long time. But yeah, this is an original first pressing of that, and I'm the only, you know, I'm the sole owner of that. But my go-to has always been the CD. This is what I used to listen to all the time. This is my original disc, and I mean, so much has been said about this. I'm not going to really give you any information that you already don't know, but just from my own personal thing, just blew me away when I first heard this. And I would play this thing over and over and over and over again. It's one of the few albums from the 90s where you could put this on at any part of this, play 1 second of it, and I can tell you what it is, what song it is, that kind of thing. You know, just every song on here is just so memorable to me. I mean, there isn't really anything that I would skip over. I think it ends with that Something in the Way is just a great way to end this. I guess if you were going to have one track that I would kind of skip over, it would be Polly. I was never, you know, that's not up to the standard of the rest of these. But man, everything else, that just absolute blistering territorial pissings, that's the punk stuff coming in. Of course, Smells Like Teen Spirit, that goes without saying. In Bloom, Come As You Are. Come As You Are got a little old because it was a really mid-tempo thing. And it was always on the radio and always on MTV. So, you know, that one. And then it bounces right back with Breed, which is just stellar. One of my favorite tracks on here. Lithium, you know, again, more of a radio thing. So, you know, but then side two, none of this got overplayed. Like Lounge Act, great. I'm on a plane, I can't complain, Stay Away. I mean, just, again, another blasting out, just fast track. Mid-tempo stuff that got them on the radio. Fast, blistering stuff. Mellow stuff that sounds sincere. This whole album is just an absolute, I mean, landmark album. But there are landmark albums that I don't care about. There are popular albums I don't care about. I've done a whole running thing on my channel about the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. I've done a whole running thing on my channel about Steely Dan's Asia albums. I couldn't give two shits about those. The only reason it's not like the only reason I like this is because it's legendary and it changed the face of music. And I truly, absolutely was blown away by this the first time I heard it. So, I mean, this is absolutely a favorite. It absolutely is my favorite album of 1991. Maybe it's yours as well, or maybe you would put this in your top 10. Some people might say, Nirvana is overrated, or, this album's overrated or whatever. But I was so into this before it blew up big. Butch Vig's production, I definitely liked what he did with Nirvana more than I liked what Steve Albini did with them on In Utero, and that original mix or whatever, supposed original mix that was intended to be the mix that came out a few years back. Not a fan of that at all. But everything about this, Nirvana's Nevermind, my absolute favorite out of 140 albums of 1991. Had I ranked 300 albums of 1991, I am sure this would still be number one on the list. So thank you so much for watching. That wraps it up. 140 albums I ranked. I listened to these, like I said. I paid absolute attention. Some I would go back and listen to a second and third time that I wasn't as familiar with, but I would do that in my car or working out or doing other things or whatever. But each one of these albums I listened to and gave attention to. So I'm pretty satisfied with my ranking of these. As the years go by, maybe some would, move up and down a little bit. But I'm pretty solid with Nirvana at number one and Toad the Wet Sprocket at number 140. I'm pretty solid with that. Thank you again. It really, I know I asked a lot with this video series. And I truly appreciate you checking this out. Let me know where your favorites fell, if you haven't already, in the comments. And the big question that people keep asking in the comments is, do I intend to do something this mammoth again? And the answer is, I had so much fun doing this. Yes, I definitely intend on doing this again. And maybe I'll make it a year-end thing. Start it off in November instead of December this time. That way it can wrap up in December. Maybe I'll make it a yearly thing. Do some wild over 100 countdown of top albums from a previous year. Maybe I won't even wait until close to the new year. I'm ready for 1992, quite honestly. I'm ready. I'm ready to do it right now. But I've got other videos to make before that. I got some vinyl finds and a nice box set of the Saints I want to tell you all about. So those are coming up as well. But again, I'm not going to take up any more of your time. I've already taken up quite enough of it. So Robert Fithen here. Again, thank you so much for watching.